Okay, in this video we are going to take a look at duplicating a selected object. So we're going to be building a tool that lets us select an object, then it will take that selected object and duplicate it over. So in essence, when you start thinking about building a tool like this, what is the main function that we want to do? We want to duplicate. In this case, the command is just duplicate. So when we run this, we can see that it duplicates the object. We don't necessarily know the name of the object so that we can select it and use the set adder at this point, but we can set it up where we do find out what that is. So there is a Maya command that is mc.ls, and we're going to say sl equals true. And what does this mean? ls is a list. So Maya's coming up with a list for you. The object that we want to create a list from is the selected object. And then true is that is what we're actually doing. Because there's different possibilities for what you can create a list from. So we're just telling it list is true. That's what we want to make a list from. So this in itself kind of will just do nothing. It'll actually pop up an error for us. Line 4, nothing to duplicate. So we actually have to have something selected there, run it, and then we'll be fine. So that's one thing. We need to make sure that we do have a selection in order for it to work. But how do we get access to this list item? Well, in the previous lessons, couple lessons, we took a look at variables. So we can create a variable here that is called cell, and then we make it equal to that command. Let's go ahead and print cell, and I'm going to comment out this line. So comments aren't read by the program when it runs everything, so we can see now when I run it, it doesn't actually duplicate the object. Here we can see the print, what it gave us. Also, I'm using the old formatting. Let's do the new formatting. It should work exactly the same. So when we print, we can see that it is printing a little bit different than what we might expect. It's inside of brackets, and it has a U, and then it has the string that we want. So U means that it's an unordered list, and then the brackets are what define it as a list. So it's a type of data type, just like strings, just like integers or floating point variables and things like that. So with the list like that, if we were to just use it straight like that, it's actually giving us a whole list rather than the individual string that we want. So with list, they start off with 0 for the first item in the list, then 1, then 2, then 3. So anytime in a script where we want to get the first item in the list, and in this case we're only selecting one object, we're building this tool to only work with one object, what we can do is add brackets here, and we're going to tell it that we want it to print the first item in the list, which is item 0. So here we can see that it prints slightly differently, and it's only giving us the string value that we want, which is this psphere 1. Okay, so what do we want to do that with that? Let's go ahead and create the number variable, make it equal to 0 so that we can create a loop. While num is less than 5, going to the next line, we are going to duplicate. And then let's also say num equals num plus 5. So that way it won't get stuck in an infinite loop. So let's run this. So it ended after 1. Let's see. Oh, because I added plus 5. What I want is actually plus 1. So let's get rid of this object. Let's select the original object and try running this again. There we go. So we have the original object, but then we have 1 the original object, and then 5 more. So we've made 5 copies of it. Let's say we wanted a total of 5. In this case, what we would have to do is shift this down to 4, and then we get 4 copies rather than 5, and we get a total of 5 objects. Oops, I need an object to select in order to run the script. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so this is working properly now. So now we just need to be able to give it what we need so that way we can move it. We need to know exactly what the name of the object is. So if we would look into the duplicate, let's look at this command. If we right click, we can go to command documentation. It should open directly into that duplicate command. And then we can see that we can give it a name directly when it duplicates. So that's great. We already know what the original object is called. It's called cell. And then we know it's the first item in that list. So let's say that we got a new name variable is equal to cell. And let's rename that original object a little bit. So we're just going to say it's polysphere so that way it's not as confusing. So polysphere, actually let's make it even more different. My sphere. There we go. So it is equal to cell, and we want the first item on that list. Then we are going to add num plus 1, and remember that this is a numerical value and this is a string, so we need to put it in a string function. There we go. So we can say name is equal to new name. Okay, let's try running this. So we get my sphere 1, my sphere 2, my sphere 4, all the way through, and then if we run it again, you'll see that we get that other information. So it's basically taking the 4 and then adding the 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the end. So that's perfect. That is what we want. And then now we want to be able to move it, just like we did in the previous lesson. We're going to say mc.setAdder new name plus .tx, so because we're moving it in the x, is going to equal to num times 5. There you go. So let's run all of this now. And we can see that it takes that object and duplicates it over. One thing that we can notice is that the first one and the new one is now on top of each other. So we want to change that. And all we got to do is say over here where it says num, what we can do is maybe num plus 1 times 5. There we go. So let's clear out the scene except for the original sphere. And here we can see that there are 5 of them in a row now. The original plus 4 more. Alright, so that is it for this lesson. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.